So we have an article here by National Review. Actually, it's all over the news cycle. Basically, DeSantis and Florida are trying to pass a bill. Well, I'll get to that in a second. It's mostly the interesting thing here is the actual culture war. What's going on here? It's a war between conservative Republicans that have political office and have political power versus the left that's trying to push critical race theory to students in red states, but their power is in academia. Basically, it's not an overnight thing. They actually, all these teachers that are teaching the students, almost all of them, actually believe in critical race theory and think it's an important lesson. It's like a factual thing that, in order to advance society, good citizens must know about about these set of facts that they're teaching. And so on one hand you have this academic power, as far as like you can't just reverse what did the teachers think. They themselves been taught this theory or been propagandized or indoctrinated through their through their universities or wherever they get their teacher credentials from. And you got this other clash of ideas with the politicians. And it's like an interesting combat. It's like the combatants, like on a they're medieval combatants, and one set of tribe has like shields and swords, and other set of tribe has like bows and arrows and bows and stuff like that. It's there are two different type of powers here. As far as the actual bill. Oh, well, actually, you know what? Let's start with this article. So, Associated Press reports an article that Florida bill that would prohibit public schools and private businesses from making white people feel discomfort when they teach students or train employees about discrimination in the nation's past received its first approval Tuesday. So you can tell that Associated Press, even though they're supposed to be super even-handed, super neutral, they're just putting out headlines and just pure facts. You can tell that there was a lot of editorializing in this thing. Basically, they're saying, hey, Florida is trying to pass a bill that prevents white people from being discomfort because, teaching slavery or teaching about Jim Crow or whatever, well, that's very uncomfortable, so we need to... So that's what the Republicans, that's the bill. They want to stop that. They want to stop all discomfort. So here we have National Review pushing back on that and actually posting parts of the bill, which I'm going to get into in a second. Now, they are exaggerating here in a way, about the... stupid link. They are actually... In a sense, it's half true, because the conservatives jumped on this and say, hey, it's not about white people feeling discomfort. This bill is very race neutral. It's about any race feeling discomfort. But, of course, that too is an exaggeration, because obviously all the critical race theory, or if people you're getting like discrimination training, obviously it's mostly targeted at white people. It's not meant to make other people, races feel uncomfortable. That's one. So it is about the white discomfort one, but where another exaggeration here, which is as a lie, it's about teach students or train employees about discrimination in the nation's past, and that's not what the bill says. It's you can teach about slavery and discrimination, all this other stuff. It's about more. Well, let's see what the bill says here. Here we go. An individual should not be made to feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on account of his or her own race. So, what the bill is trying to do is, and here to clarify here, instructional personnel may facilitate discussion and use curricula to address, in an age-appropriate manner, the topics of sexism, slavery, racial oppression, racial segregation, and racial discrimination, including topics related to the enactment and enforcement of laws resulting in sexism, racial oppression, racial segregation, racial discrimination. However, classroom instruction and curriculum may not be used to indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular point of view inconsistent with the principles of this subsection or state academic standards. And what are those principles here? A. No individual is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously, solely by the virtue of his or her race or sex. B. No race is inherently superior to another race. No individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment solely or particularly on the basis of race, color, national origin, religion, disability, or sex. Meritocracy or traits such as hard work ethic are not racist, but fundamental to the rights to pursue happiness and be rewarded for industry. An individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, does not bear responsibility for actions committed in the past or by other members of the same race or sex. So there you have it. I guess they're trying to walk a tightrope here. On one hand, they don't want to prohibit, or I mean, obviously it'd be ridiculous if they were to prohibit teaching about actual history and bad things that happen in history. However, they want to prevent the actual critical race theory aspect of it, where it's basically the whole belief system where, like, well, look, you're white, you're privileged, you're male, so therefore you're sexist, you got whatever, it's like, or we should line up in a group, and who's white skin, take a step, who has rich parents, or take a step, who has never whatever been malnourished or whatever, they're and the issue is, I mean, I'm a radical. No, not many people share my beliefs. But, it's... Yeah, I'm torn here. At one hand, this is something that these CRT people do deserve, It seems like they do deserve this type of bill where they should tread carefully about indoctrinating people and making people do feel uncomfortable or whatever, or I'm not even sure. Is it about comfort? Because that's the thing. Like the left, or you like this. I can totally see this type of bill backfiring, because I could see that once it's enacted, and DeSantis is not the governor or whatever. Other administration, the left can totally use this bill as for its own purposes. Let's say you're in biology class and some trans person feels uncomfortable about talking about that there's like biologically two sexes or whatever, I could see, I mean, if it's based on somebody's feelings to whether you're comfortable or uncomfortable or not, this can just go any which way. So obviously the most practical solution would be learning vouchers. have the kid receive, have the parents receive the actual, like a voucher for school, and the parents can decide what type of education, what type of schooling they want to send their kids to. They want to send their kids to like a woke school that teaches critical race theory. Okay, that's fine. Another set of, like, parents are going to send their kids to like a college prep school that only teaches STEM. That's fine too. But the war, it's like this tug of war, because you only have like one school system. Therefore, the conservatives and the liberals or progressives have to ballot it out, politically, in order to gain dominance in what to teach the kids. I just don't think. I mean, well, I'm just being honest here, being a libertarian. I think government. I mean, this is a culture issue, and a lot of these things the government just can't solve by passing a law. You can't, to solve poverty, you can't like pass a law against poverty saying it's illegal to be poor or whatever. You're right. It's like, although, I mean, like, it's as far as private workplaces or private businesses, I believe a business should fire you for, or basically all human interactions should be voluntary. So if a business wants to hire you, or, hey, like, it's the same thing as, do you want to be somebody's friend? Well, I don't want to be that person's friend. I don't like the guy's hat. Okay, well, you don't have to be friends with him. Same with business. For whatever reason, you don't have to conduct, just like for whatever reason, if you don't want to go to a restaurant because the restaurant, the owner's Italian and you don't like Italians, well, whatever. Like, that's your choice, right? And that's how all, even economic interactions should be, personally on a voluntary basis. And ideally, you'd have schools the same way. Ideally, you'd have a variety of different schools, and parents would volunteer, and students would voluntarily choose the school of their liking. But now that you have this like public school, you have this one system that this political tug of war is played with. And that's the thing. I've read conservative opinion stating that, like, hey, once we beat back CRT, we shouldn't get rid of public schools because we want to indoctrinate, kids with civics and nationalism and this and that, So, but conservatives have their own plans to indoctrinate kids into whatever beliefs they want. I mean, I'm sure all political groups have that. But unfortunately, what they don't realize is the left is way, way, way better at appropriating academia. So everybody in academia is always, is always going to be perpetually on the side of the left. So it's an ongoing war for them. Passing this bill, it's interesting. I don't know. I'm not going to be honest here. I don't know. Even if it passes, would it stop CRT? I mean, maybe in Florida it would stop. Would it stop racial sensitivity or whatever type of trainings that people have to go through in order to get hired, or even if you're hired, would it stop those because people can claim they're uncomfortable based on race or sex or whatever? Who knows? But definitely, this National Review article is definitely in favor of this bill. It says, into context, a list of similar principles: non-discrimination, treating people as individuals, not applying collective guilt, or concepts of essential characteristics tied to race, denouncing racial generalizations and stereotypes. Again, all things we should be against. No? Well, obviously no. The left does not share that. The left has been really far away from the MLK, judge a person by its character. Moreover, as concluding section makes clear, the standards proposed explicitly permit the discussion of racism, sexism, slavery, Jim Crow, etc. as a general concepts and as systematic elements of American and Florida law, and simply aim to root out indoctrination in concepts that are inconsistent with the fundamental liberal principles of American individual inequality. Public schools can never be entirely neutral about ideas. They have to teach something, and every choice to teach is choice to exclude. The Florida legislature aims here to ensure that it's what is taught is not indoctrination against values we all share, aspire to share, or at least pretend to share. Well, that's a very vague statement. Because obviously, there's a clash of values here. And, a big percentage of America actually despises America and think it should burn it down and start all over, and thinks it's a white supremacist, sexist, or whatever, So, I think the actual moral of the story, on a more global point, is if we can get a society where it's an Optin society, because right now, in legacy countries, legacy states, where all these different beliefs are kind of just smashed together, and there's a lot of conflict. Is it possible in the future to have areas and states and countries where you opt in to be there? So you have to join, you have to apply, and you have to be accepted. And there's a reason for you being accepted, joining, and applying. More of like small little city states where people elect themselves to be there because they like the principles or like the opportunity or whatever. And that type of reciprocal, reciprocal connections between people, just like you go into a restaurant. You go to a restaurant because you like it, and the restaurant serves you because they want your money, and they pretend to like you. So we need to establish a very mutual, reciprocal, mutually beneficial interaction between people, as opposed to having all these people just live together and just having culture war after culture war after, pulling each way. It's all like tug of war, zero sum games.